Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's we'll be doing an off-road comparison with the Ineos Grenadier and the Toyota Land Cruiser. In the first part, I'll give you guys a few specs on both of the vehicles, and then we'll just get straight into the off-roading. So this Grenadier, as equipped, has about 11 inches of ground clearance. We've got skid plate protection underneath. We've got steel bumpers. This Land Cruiser, as equipped, has roughly 9 inches of ground clearance. We also have skid plate protection underneath, but we've got plastic bumpers. Both of them have tires that are roughly 33 inches tall. Both trucks have solid rear axles, but the Land Cruiser has independent front suspension, whereas the Grenadier has a solid front axle. So the Grenadier has a 2-speed transfer case as well as a center locker, and then it also has a front and a rear locking differential. It has a pretty archaic traction control system. The Land Cruiser also has a 2-speed transfer case as well as a center locker, rear locker, a stabilizer bar, disconnect, and it has a fancy traction control system. So I'm purposefully going to be driving up this slowly, and the reason I'm doing that is to test the four-wheel drive systems of both vehicles. So in the Land Cruiser and in the Grenadier, I'm going to start off with just the center differential locked. We're not going to use the rear differential at all. So you guys can see I am attempting to move, and I'm not really making any progress with the Land Cruiser here. We'll try that. Okay, so I'm in auto for the multi-terrain select. Let's try rock mode here. Now that's going to allow for less slipping. You can see I've got 3 tires spinning. Yeah, it's not really doing anything. So it's gonna be a little bit of a... Okay, so let's try this again. And I'll use the rear locker if we have to, which we might on this. Okay, so redoing the rock mode and just going up again, don't have to use the rear locking differential. So it shows you how good the multi-terrain select is, but you might have to reset a little bit. I think there's no chance that this makes it up without locking all of the diffs. That's my 2 cents, but you know, we'll see. We'll give Ineos the benefit of the doubt. No way! Are you kidding me? The Land Cruiser made a huge fuss out of this, and this thing, no way! No. There's no way. I owe Ineos an apology. Section is going to be our middle speed test. Now, I don't think people are going to be doing high speed off-roading with either of these vehicles, but there is going to be a lot of middle speed off-roading, which is kind of running between obstacles. Hopped up there a little bit with the front wheel. Bit of a bigger bump than I remembered. But yeah, I think this is pretty much what most people will be doing speed-wise with these. And the Land Cruiser, with this, you're actually going to be in 4-wheel drive high, just so you know. You can still use multi-terrain select in 4-wheel drive high, for those of you that are wondering. I've got mine in dirt mode right now. The suspension's pretty darn comfortable. You don't get any kickback into the steering, which is nice. So you don't feel what's happening with the front end as much because everything's so isolated. But the nice part about being isolated is your steering's not going like this overall, because these rocks are, yeah, especially that gets very bumpy. But overall, the 250 Land Cruiser in this middle speed stuff, it handles it pretty well, and it's got aggressive enough angles with the front and the rear bumper that you're not really having to worry too much about bottoming out. Bigger stuff like this, yeah, you just slow down a little bit. But the suspension handles it beautifully. It's controlled and it is comfortable. And so for these in-between trails, in between the rock crawling sections that you'll be going through, and by the way, you can use the stabilizer bar disconnect in four-wheel drive high, for those of you who are wondering. For these in-between trails, the Land Cruiser I think does really well. The Land Cruiser, through this quick stuff, we're actually in four-wheel drive low. The Land Cruiser locks out at 4th gear in four-wheel drive low, whereas the Grenadier, you can go all the way up to 8th. It uses all the gears, so you can go fast in four-wheel drive low, whereas the Land Cruiser, they want you to put it in four-wheel drive high if you're gonna go quick. That's just how it works. And obviously, if you're gonna go really quick in the Grenadier, you're gonna want to be in four-wheel drive high. But like a middle speed trail like this, yeah, no, you're gonna be okay in four-wheel drive low. Now, here's what I'll say about the suspension. It's not quite as comfortable as the Land Cruiser. You definitely feel stuff a little bit more. And the steering, you can see, is quite busy, but again, no vibration coming through the steering, so I can be pretty precise, pretty controlled. And the suspension on this is a lot more controlled. Yeah, what I'm noticing is over the little rocks and everything, the Land Cruiser, you know, I felt them, but it was much more comfortable. This, I can feel, and I think a big part of that's the solid axles. The ground clearance definitely helps it. I mean, like, look at that, boom, way better suspension compression than the Land Cruiser. I can actually go through things a little bit quicker here with the Grenadier than I could with the Land Cruiser. And part of that's also the angles of the Grenadier. The Grenadier has much more aggressive angles. Now, it's pretty easy to pop on the center diff. Let's see if we can do this just like we did in the Land Cruiser. Land Cruiser have a stabilizer bar disconnect. This just has solid axles. So you can see that, yeah, not quite as simple. Let's try that again. I'll be able to get through this time. But yeah, we don't have a fancy traction control system, so if you lose grip, well, it's open diff, so it spins. So, starting with the just the center diff locked, we're in rock mode, multi-terrain select, stabilizer bar disconnected. Again, with the stabilizer bar, because it has that the ability to disconnect it, we're going to use it. Now, I think this obstacle is going to push the Grenadier to the limit. The Land Cruiser weighs 5,700 pounds. The Grenadier weighs 6,500 pounds. And the Grenadier doesn't have fancy traction. It's really muddy on the side. And the thing is, with the mud here, it's very, I mean, I'm sliding there a little bit to the side already. It's very goopy. Man, so this rock mode is overpowered. I had it, again, with that hill that we got stuck on, I had it in auto and it just couldn't figure its life out. But in rock mode, it is so quick to react. And I'll be honest, that's what I've used most of the time when I've taken this up steep stuff, is just the rock mode, because even if I'm not technically rock crawling, it seems to just be the best programming. Okay, now we're gonna be going down. I'm just gonna lock it into first gear. Not gonna use any of the hill descent control or crawl control or anything like that. What I kind of see crawl control as is kind of like a Swiss Army knife tool, where it's nice to have it. I'm not going to use it until I absolutely need to use it. I don't like, yeah, I can see it as like it's a crutch, but it's a good crutch. Did I accidentally just, no, I didn't. Shouldn't have had my hand on the shifter there. That was kind of stupid, but it's like force of habit sometimes, man. I've driven manuals for so many years that, yeah, I'm kind of sliding there. I'm wondering, I feel like the Grenadier is going to slide a heck of a lot more than this. They both have tires that are mud snow rated, so technically we should be good to go on both of them, but I'll be interested to see how the Grenadier does on that same thing. Now, just like the last obstacle, we're going to start with center diff locked only. We'll only use the other diff locks if need be. And by the way, that hill climb, I was wondering how steep it was. It's 33 degrees. So it is indeed quite steep. Now, if the Grenadier makes it up this, I will be just, without the diffs locked. I know it can make it up, but without the diffs locked front and rear, I will be so impressed. Because I've taken so many cars through this and everything just has to either have a diff locked or it's got to use the traction control system over time. Like right here, there's no way. Wow. I mean, the solid axles obviously help with the grip, but man, this Grenadier does so much better than everyone on YouTube makes it out to be. Everyone's like, oh, it gets bogged down and this and that. And it's like, man, this thing is unstoppable. Just like the Land Cruiser, just locking it into first gear, not using hill descent control or anything. Now, yeah, going down this, I can really feel the difference in the ride. Land Cruiser is more comfortable, but this feels rugged. And I will say, having the safari windows makes this feel like more of like a adventure off-road. And that is something that you do get with the Grenadier here. You don't get the Land Cruisers. This feels like I'm going on some sort of adventure. Man, this thing is just... I'm impressed. The last obstacle for the comparison, it's just a little hill climb, and since we have a front camera, we'll use it on the Land Cruiser. Now, I don't think we're gonna have to use the rear diff lock at all in this comparison today for the Land Cruiser, which completely different story compared to the Grenadier. But again, it goes to show you how good these modern traction control systems are. But the reason why Toyota included the rear locker, I think, is for the rock crawling, because there is limitations. When you get really articulated, the traction control system loses out compared to having just a traditional diff lock. I hate how the camera turns off at such low speeds. I wish they did the GM thing where you can have the camera on even at like 60 miles an hour. But this is going to be the most articulated section here. But I've taken the Land Cruiser through this before, so I can tell you it's not going to be a struggle. And you can see that it just works right through it. Again, the stabilizer bar, and you can see the stability controls beeping. The stabilizer bar disconnect makes a huge difference with the articulation. So now we're going to be going down, and again, center diff locked, which is kind of pointless when you're going downhill, but I'm just doing it for continuity purposes. So we'll see the articulation difference. Again, since I have the stabilizer bar disconnect, we're using it with the Land Cruiser. And easy enough. Going up in the Grenadier, again, just center diff locked. Excuse me. Yeah, I am noticing this feels like this articulates a bit better than the, even with the stabilizer bar disconnected in the Land Cruiser, this just feels like it's got a little bit more. I wonder if the Lexus GX 550 with the EKDSS would do just as good as this with articulation. But then you run into bumper problems with that. Unless you replace the front bumper, that thing just doesn't have clearance like this, and then like the Land Cruiser. You know, I'm pretty impressed. Again, this traction control system isn't quite as smooth as Toyota's with distributing power, but it does well enough. This right here should... Nope. See, with the center diff locked, this thing's just a monster. Going down in the Grenadier. Very interested to see the articulation difference, if there is one. I'm actually going to purposely turn a little bit here. I just want to test this out to see if it will pop up. Really? So this articulates significantly better than the Land Cruiser. Because Land Cruiser and that same thing will tip. So definitely better on the articulation front. So here are my conclusions with off-roading, and the biggest one is you have to know how to use both the vehicles. I'll explain this towards the end, but middle speed off-roading, I think the Grenadier wins when it comes to clearances and speed, right? Because of the higher clearance and the better approach and departure and breakover angle, you can just go a little bit quicker, but the Land Cruiser is definitely more comfortable at middle speed off-roading. The suspension soaks up the bumps significantly better. When it comes to rock crawling, I would say that both of them are extremely capable. I mean, we went up all of that stuff with both of them with just the center differential locked. As long as you have them in the right modes, they can get up quite a bit. And the only reason why you're going to use the rear lock on the Land Cruiser or the rear or the front locker in the Grenadier is if things get extremely articulated or a lot muddier than what we had today. What today really shows me, though, is that a lot of off-road comparisons on YouTube haven't done either of these vehicles all that much justice. As long as you have them in the right modes, as long as you know how to operate them properly, they are extremely capable. And so I think a lot of the failures that we've seen on YouTube with the new 250 Land Cruiser and with the Grenadier just come down to user error. Now, the Grenadier is a little bit easier to have in the right mode. All you have to do is just have an off-road mode and you're pretty much set. With the Land Cruiser, I mean, you guys saw, I had the multi-terrain select in auto and it wasn't having it. I put it in rock crawl mode and it went up no problem whatsoever. And so there's definitely a little bit of a learning curve with both of them. Another thing is, with the Land Cruiser, if you're going anything higher than rock crawling speeds, you're going to be in four-wheel drive high off-road. That's why multi-terrain select is available in four-wheel drive high, whereas the Grenadier, you're going to be in four-wheel drive low pretty much all the time. So yeah, it just really comes down to learning the machine. And once you learn both of these machines, they are both extremely capable. I think it really just comes down to what experience you want more, and then what's more important to you, right? If comfort and convenience and all that is a little bit more important to you, then the Land Cruiser is going to make more sense, right? It's more of like a regular car inside. The Grenadier is if you want more of an old school feel, but either way, they'll both get you to the top of the mountain.